It began with whispers, rumors of a final message hidden in his last performance, a look in his eyes that fans couldn't shake, and then silence. Just weeks after what seemed like a grand farewell, Ozzy Osbourne was gone. No warning, no fanfare. A sudden end for a man who once seemed invincible. But as the tributes poured in, so did the questions. Was this really unexpected? Or had the Osbourne family been preparing for this moment all along? From secret pacts to resurfaced quotes, today we uncover the truth behind Ozzy's mysterious final days. Ozzy Osbourne stepped onto the stage at Villa Park in Birmingham for what would be his last public appearance. It was July 2025, and though the Prince of Darkness wasn't performing a full set, the night had a haunting energy. Billed as a celebration of heavy metal and his legacy, the event was packed with bands like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and Judas Priest. The night pulsed with nostalgia, triumph, and a strange undercurrent of finality. As Ozzy waved to thousands of fans and shared emotional goodbyes, some noticed his frailty, others saw a man at peace. But what almost no one realized was that they were watching a goodbye wrapped in layers of secrecy. Just weeks later, on July 22nd, 2025, Ozzy Osbourne was dead at the age of 76. The timing was chilling. How does someone go from waving to a crowd to being gone in a matter of days? The Osbourne family confirmed that he passed away peacefully in Birmingham, surrounded by family. But what no one initially mentioned was how this moment eerily aligned with a decades-old plan Ozzy and Sharon once made together. A plan that involved assisted death. Fans quickly began to dig into interviews, memoirs, and podcast episodes that hinted at something darker. Had Ozzy known this was coming? Had the family made a private decision, decades in the making, to say goodbye on their own terms? The speculation didn't just come from tabloids. It came from longtime fans, armchair investigators, and even family members who were suddenly forced to clarify the past. The irony of it all? Just 11 days before Ozzy died, his daughter Kelly Osbourne had gone on social media to shut down so-called suicide pact rumors. She called it clickbait. She said her dad wasn't dying. But now, in the absence of concrete answers, the public's imagination ran wild. Back in 2007, when most rock icons were reflecting on excess, Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne made headlines for something far more personal: their open support for assisted suicide. Sharon wrote about it in her memoir, Survivor: My Story, the Next Chapter, revealing a chilling agreement between herself and Ozzy. If either of them were ever diagnosed with Alzheimer's or another degenerative brain illness, they would end their lives together at Dignitas, the controversial Swiss-assisted suicide organization. At the time, it seemed like a distant hypothetical, but now it feels like a prophetic warning. Sharon's reasoning was rooted in personal pain. Her father, music manager Don Arden, died from Alzheimer's, and the agony of watching his slow mental decay haunted her. If Ozzy or I ever got Alzheimer's, that's it, we'd be off, she said in a 2007 Daily Mirror interview. She doubled down, saying they had literally drawn up plans for the Swiss flat. Fast forward to 2023. The Osbourne family brought it up again, this time casually, on the Osbournes podcast. Jack asked Sharon if the plan to go to Switzerland was still active. Sharon's response was flippant, almost dismissive. "Do you think that we're going to suffer?" she joked. Jack quipped back, "Well, maybe. Isn't life already suffering?" To which Sharon replied chillingly, "Yes, we all are, but I don't want it to actually hurt as well. If you've got mental and physical, see ya." Ozzy was there, quiet, present, and noticeably less lively than in years past. With Ozzy's official diagnosis of Parkinson's, fans can't help but connect the dots. While Parkinson's is not Alzheimer's, it's still a progressive disease that impacts both the mind and body. Had their private line in the sand already been crossed? This wasn't a theoretical conversation anymore. The Osbournes had gone public with their thoughts on euthanasia, and now the frontman of Black Sabbath, the man who once bit the head off a bat, defied death, and redefined shock rock, was suddenly, mysteriously, gone. The public didn't know what to believe, and Sharon wasn't offering any answers, at least not yet. On July 11th, just 11 days before Ozzy's death, Kelly Osbourne posted an emotional Instagram story that now feels like either a heartfelt plea or a panicked attempt at controlling a narrative. She slammed the rumors making the rounds online. "Stop making articles or posts about how you think my parents are having a suicide pact," she wrote. "That was bulls. My mom said to get attention one time, and my dad's not dying. Stop." At face value, it seemed like an effort to dispel morbid conspiracy theories. But with the benefit of hindsight, her words read very differently. Was she shielding her family from press intrusion? Or did she genuinely believe Ozzy's time wasn't near? Some fans believed her. Others noticed a pattern. The Osbournes have long blurred the lines between authenticity and publicity. Reality TV royalty. They've made headlines by mixing the shocking with the sincere. Kelly didn't stop at just suicide rumors. She addressed AI-generated videos that were circulating showing Ozzy looking ill, frail, or even dead. "He's not dying," she said again. "Yes, he has Parkinson's, and yes, his mobility is completely different than it used to be, but he's not dying. What is wrong with you?" But now, with Ozzy gone just days later, the comment feels eerily off. Some fans speculated that Kelly may not have been fully informed about her father's condition or decisions. Others believed she was doing what any daughter would, protecting her father from being remembered for whispers and rumors, rather than the music and the legacy. Still, the tension between what she insisted and what ultimately happened has kept this story in the spotlight. Why would she be so firm, so defensive, so close to the end? Could the family have been divided? Was there more going on behind the scenes than the public will ever know? And what about Ozzy's actual condition in his final days? That's what we'll uncover next. For years, Ozzy Osbourne's public image had been one of resilience, a rock god who survived addiction, fame, and decades of hard living. But by 2025, that mask had started to slip. His fall in 2019 marked the start of an irreversible health decline. Ozzy had undergone neck and spine surgeries. He revealed he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2020, but what wasn't shared until much later was how deeply it had affected his everyday life. In public, Ozzy would appear seated during interviews, visibly shaking, often speaking in short phrases. His voice had lost that signature punch, and his eyes, once full of mischief, carried a permanent weight. Sharon, always at his side, reassured fans that he was fighting hard. But the truth behind closed doors was far bleaker. Ozzy had lost much of his mobility. He reportedly needed assistance just to get out of bed, and simple movements like walking to the bathroom became exhausting. His nervous system had deteriorated to the point that doctors feared another fall could be fatal. There were also whispers about cognitive decline. Though never confirmed, fans noticed Ozzy sometimes slurred his words, forgot key details during interviews, or appeared confused. Was it the Parkinson's alone? Or something worse? Something degenerative and terminal? In early 2025, rumors emerged that Ozzy was in and out of specialized care facilities. These weren't hospices exactly. They were private recovery clinics known for handling patients with advanced neurological conditions. But no official statement ever addressed this. In fact, the Osbourne family went out of their way to project strength. Kelly said, "He's not dying," even as insiders hinted at a heartbreaking truth. And yet, despite his visible deterioration, Ozzy had agreed to appear publicly at Villa Park, a moment that now looks like a ceremonial farewell, carefully orchestrated for fans, but rooted in personal closure. He didn't perform, he didn't sing. He simply stood before thousands, waved, and looked out, as if absorbing every cheer one final time. To some, it was triumphant. To others, it looked like a man saying goodbye on his own terms. The timing of Ozzy's death is one of the strangest parts of the story. On the surface, it may seem like a tragic coincidence. An aging rock star passes away weeks after appearing at a concert in his honor. But when you begin to dig deeper, a pattern emerges, one that feels too orchestrated, too precise to ignore. Villa Park wasn't just another concert. It was marketed as a farewell, a grand homage to Ozzy's legacy. The bands invited weren't random. Metallica, Judas Priest, and Guns N' Roses were handpicked. The venue was Birmingham, Ozzy's hometown, the birthplace of Black Sabbath. The emotional energy was overwhelming. For fans who'd followed his journey from the 70s to now, it felt like the end of an era. But why then? Why risk appearing in public when your health is visibly deteriorating? Why make the effort to attend an event if you're just weeks away from death, unless that moment had a purpose? There's a theory gaining traction online that Ozzy knew the end was coming and wanted to control the narrative. The idea wasn't that he was suicidal, but rather that the concert was a form of closure, both for himself and his fans. A last public gesture, a final bow, a way to be remembered with applause instead of tubes and machines. It's here that the family's past comments about assisted suicide take on new weight. The references to dignitas, the statements about mental and physical suffering, and Sharon's disturbing phrasing, "If you've got both, see ya." Did they see the concert as the perfect send-off, with his passing to follow privately and peacefully? The Osbournes have not confirmed anything, but the silence itself has been deafening. No autopsy report has been made public. No official cause of death has been shared. Sharon's statement was brief, polished, and avoided details. That void has only fueled speculation. It's not just a question of how Ozzy died, it's the question of when, and whether that timing was a final act of control from a man who lived every second of his life on his own terms. When a rock legend dies, especially one as globally famous as Ozzy Osbourne, the world expects a media storm, tributes, press conferences, documentaries, a flood of public emotion. But after Ozzy's passing, there was something eerie about the quiet. Sharon, Jack, Kelly, and Amy issued a single joint statement. No public memorial, no fanfare, no televised funeral, just silence. It is with more sadness than mere words can convey that we have to report that our beloved Ozzy Osbourne has passed away this morning. The statement read, "He was with his family and surrounded by love." That was it. For a family that made a career out of openness, reality TV shows, podcast confessions, media spectacles, their sudden decision to go dark raised questions. Why the silence? Some believe the Osbournes were simply grieving in private, but others suspect there was something they didn't want to reveal. The absence of details about the cause of death, the refusal to answer media inquiries, and the chilling context of their past statements have all become fuel for public speculation. Did Sharon fear backlash? Did they make a difficult, controversial choice and now want to shield themselves from judgment? Or was it simply that the Osbournes didn't want Ozzy's final chapter turned into another media circus? One source close to the family told a UK outlet that things were already in motion weeks before the concert, hinting at a carefully managed goodbye behind the scenes. Another insider claimed that Ozzy had been preparing goodbye letters to each of his 6 children, a rumor that has yet to be confirmed but refuses to die. And then there's Sharon herself, a woman who once claimed she'd rather die with dignity than waste away. A woman who spoke openly about Switzerland, dignitas, and not wanting it to hurt. Her silence now speaks louder than any quote from the past. In the calm after Ozzy's death, fans were left with a mystery. Was this a natural passing? Or was this, in true rock star fashion, one final performance, choreographed to perfection and cloaked in just enough secrecy to become legend? For decades, Sharon Osbourne has been the fierce matriarch of the Osbourne family, manager, protector, enforcer, and lightning rod. But behind her hardened public image lies a woman whose personal philosophies about death have stirred serious debate. Back in 2007, she wrote in her memoir, Survivor, that she and Ozzy had agreed on a chilling plan. If either of them were ever diagnosed with Alzheimer's or a similar debilitating illness, they would go to Dignitas, a Swiss organization that facilitates assisted suicide. If Ozzy or I ever got Alzheimer's, she wrote, that's it, we'd be off. That comment resurfaced like a ghost when Ozzy's health began to deteriorate publicly in the early 2020s. Then, in October 2023, during an episode of the Osbournes podcast, The family revisited the subject. Jack jokingly asked Sharon if the plan still stood. Her reply, laced with fatalism, was eerie in hindsight. "Well, maybe. Isn't life already suffering?" she asked. And then, in a tone that made listeners uncomfortable, she added, "If you've got mental and physical, see ya." The gravity of those words, at the time, was brushed off as typical Sharon dark humor. But after Ozzy's death in July 2025, just weeks after his final public appearance, those statements began to look more like foreshadowing. Had the plan been real all along? And more importantly, had it been executed? Sharon hasn't spoken publicly since the brief family statement. No follow-up interviews, no podcast episodes. Silence. And that silence is what's giving this theory traction. Supporters of assisted dying point to Sharon's candor as refreshing and courageous. Critics, on the other hand, are unsettled by the possibility that a celebrity death may have been coordinated behind the scenes and sanitized for public consumption. There's no smoking gun, no flight records from Switzerland, no confirmed involvement with Dignitas. But the breadcrumbs are there. A long-held philosophy, a final concert, a quiet goodbye, and a death that came not with suffering, but with surgical precision. The question now isn't whether Sharon believed in this plan. It's whether she quietly followed through with it, shielding the world from Ozzy's final days so that fans would only remember the legend, not the struggle. If anyone knows how to guard the Osbourne family's legacy, it's Kelly. As Ozzy's most media-savvy child, she's spent her life navigating the chaos of public fame, scandals, and now her father's death. But in the weeks before Ozzy passed, Kelly issued a very specific warning, and now it reads like a frantic attempt to contain a story that was already unraveling. On July 11th, just 11 days before Ozzy's death, Kelly took to Instagram to respond to a flood of viral videos and tabloid headlines. Many of them were focused on the infamous suicide pact, the plan Sharon had mentioned in her book and again on the family podcast. In her story, Kelly wrote, "Stop making articles or posts about how you think my parents are having a suicide pact. That was bullshit, my mom said to get attention one time, and my dad's not dying. Stop." It was blunt, angry, desperate, but also deeply revealing. First, the timing. If Ozzy's death really came as a surprise, why was Kelly already denying death rumors? And why specifically target the assisted suicide angle unless there was more truth to it than she wanted to admit? Second, the contradiction. She called it attention-seeking, something her mother said one time. But that wasn't true. Sharon mentioned it in 2007, again in interviews, again in 2023. It wasn't an isolated remark. It was a consistent belief over decades. Third, Kelly's wording. She didn't say, "My parents never made a plan." She said, "My dad's not dying." But within 2 weeks, he was gone. Was Kelly in denial? Was she trying to protect the family's privacy? Or was she attempting to discredit something she knew had a grain of truth and feared the public wouldn't understand? Critics online have pointed out the eerie tone of her denial. Supporters of the suicide theory have asked, if Kelly was so sure it was fake, why speak out at all? Why not just let the story die like all the others? Some believe Kelly was trying to create distance, not from her father's death, but from a decision the public might not forgive. In that light, her statement becomes less of a denial and more of a defense. Ozzy Osbourne wasn't just a rock star, he was a cultural force. The voice of Black Sabbath, the madman who bit the head off a bat, the Prince of Darkness who somehow became America's favorite reality TV dad. His life was chaos, his survival was miraculous, and his death, despite being expected, still feels suspiciously tidy. He left behind 6 children, dozens of albums, countless stories, 2 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions. But perhaps the most chilling part of Ozzy's legacy is what he didn't leave: answers. There was no cause of death released, no funeral live-streamed, no final message to fans, just silence, a hole where chaos used to be. And in that silence, theories have multiplied. Some believe Ozzy passed away naturally, his body finally giving out after decades of punishment. Others believe the concert at Villa Park was a farewell ritual, his last moment of glory before a private, assisted death. A few speculate darker things still: cover-ups, NDAs, even government protection for high-profile end-of-life procedures abroad. But the most haunting theory isn't about euthanasia or conspiracies. It's about control. Ozzy spent his entire life breaking rules, defying odds, and rewriting what it meant to be a rock star. Is it really so hard to believe that in the end he'd want to control death itself? That he'd choreograph one last act, not of rebellion, but of grace? And if that's true, then maybe we'll never get answers. Maybe that's the point. The Osbournes always blurred the line between entertainment and reality, between the public and private, between the legend and the man. Now, with Ozzy gone, the line is gone too, and all we're left with is the echo of his voice, the flicker of his last bow, and the one question he took with him to the grave: was this goodbye planned all along?